The Western world is at a pivot point, but which direction will we be headed in? Hi, I'm Brian Lilley, political columnist for the Toronto Sun. When I say the world is at a pivot point, I'm not just talking about political elections, not just talking about the US presidential election that's coming up. Will it be Joe Biden or Donald Trump? Not just talking about here in Canada. Will it be Justin Trudeau or Pierre Poilievre? There are so many different moving parts going on right now. The Western world is in a state trying to decide which direction we're going to go. And this week, I had a chance to sit down with an old friend, Glenn Beck, radio talk show host, media pioneer, the man behind The Blaze, the man who sees the world differently and always looks at it deeply. And that's what was interesting about the conversation, because you start off asking Glenn Beck about Donald Trump and how the election's going, and you're suddenly in a deep philosophical conversation about the direction of the world, not just America, but the Western world. We talked about Trump. We talked about Trudeau. We talked about the DEI movement and has the Western world woken up to what rot that is. We spoke about Israel and the future of media and free speech in our societies. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Glenn, I want to start by asking you about Donald Trump, because up here in Canada, he's viewed far differently than he is in the United States. I completely understand why Trump was elected in 2016. He was the voice of the people that everyone forgot, the people that were told, go learn to code. And he had a strong appeal there. What's his pitch this time? Why is he winning other than, well, all the indictments, which seem to help him more than hurt?
Right. Well,
what's
so
his
let
pitch
me
this time?
may I start by asking, you said you have a very different view of Donald Trump in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that view? Because there's half the country views the other half here in America as very, very different.
Well, imagine that everyone only got their news from MSNBC.
Okay,
And,
good.
that'll
Yeah, all
kind of
right.
shape it. He's
Yeah.
more popular than past Republican presidential candidates. You know, more popular than Mitt Romney even. There's about a third of the country that like him and say that they'd like to see him elected president. But two-thirds think he's a lunatic and we can't let him back in. That's the MSNBC type effect, or CBC as
So
we call it.
Canadians may not know this, but I was dead set against Donald Trump on the first round in
I
2016.
remember.
Yeah, and took a lot of heat for it and whatever. And I said at the time, I think he's a lunatic, and he's going to be. I think he's going to be dangerous. And I said, there will be nobody more happy to be wrong than me. And I will admit and apologize to my audience and to him if he turns out to be not that guy. About, I don't know, year and a half into it, I started seeing him do things that no Republican would ever do, keeping some promises, most of his promises that no one has ever kept. Biggest one, Israel. And moving the embassy to Jerusalem, which
Mhm.
makes him a really bad Hitler. I just might point out, but he is the secret to understanding Donald Trump is take him seriously, but not literally. He is a performer, and so when he goes out, he's just shooting from the hip. Okay. However, he is extraordinarily bright. I was just talking to Senator Mike Lee, who is our strongest constitutionalist, I think, in the Senate. And Mike had the same worries about Donald Trump that I did early on. And he has spent a lot of time with Donald Trump. And we were just talking last night about him being in the room with Donald Trump, and uh, they were trying to get some things done, and Trump said, Mike, there's got to in the Senate, there's got to be these rules, and can you tie this to the Constitution? And he came up with this legal theory that Mike said he had literally that day been talking to like 3 or 4 legal scholars, and they had come up with very similar legal theory. And he's like, I can't believe this guy is talking to me at that level. He's very, very smart. With that being said, the reason why he's winning now, I think it may have been DeSantis, but the left persecuted him and made him into a symbol. And you don't want to make a martyr, and they did.
Well, this is the joke that I'm always having with friends who are supporters or opponents of Trump. He's one indictment away from sweeping the Electoral College. You know, just find one more thing, and so to me, he's not only the presumptive nominee. When I look at the polls, and specifically in swing states, he's winning the general election if it were held now. Now, campaigns matter. It's a long way away. Things can change, but that's how it looks right now. Is that your read? Is he winning in places like Wisconsin, Michigan,
Yeah,
Georgia?
he is if the election were held today, but so much can change, and he needs a big win. There's the government, the administration has been weaponized. And you know that from the Department of Justice. These things that he is being tried for are crazy, like never before tried. They have tried him, for and got a big win on supposed rape, which is literally a story out of a Law and Order episode. I mean, verbatim, with a woman who is bat crap crazy and now has won a giant judgment against Donald Trump, but the evidence wasn't allowed in court to defend him and him be able to tell his story. They have changed laws to bring up charges against him. This is a desperate attempt. With that being said, there's a good chance he goes to jail at some point because we're in kangaroo court time.
You had some comments on the Jean Carroll verdict and more the reaction to it. I want to hear that. Tell the audience that the day after they're walking out on the View to Money, the theme song from The Apprentice. People are celebrating like they won the lottery. Hey, look, 83 million is a lot of money. But I agree with you. That is a weird reaction, the celebratory mood.
So, yeah. So first of all, she said, in advance to Anderson Cooper, that she doesn't think of rape as, she thinks a lot of people think rape is sexy. I don't know anybody who thinks rape is sexy.
No.
She fantasized online a few years before this was brought up about if you could, would you rape Donald Trump? Okay. And her thing was, I think I probably would. Wait. You think rape is sexy? You have said, why would you joke about your supposed rapist?
She was posting this on Twitter, right?
Yes. Yeah. And she's nuts. But anyway, when they walked out to Money, that shows me motivation. Then when they sat down and talked and they were on Rachel Maddow, Rachel said, what are you going to use this money to? How are you going to help empower women? And she said, first thing we're doing is we're shopping at Bergdorf's. Bergdorf's is a place, and I'm not kidding you, where you can buy a t-shirt for $700. Okay. It's crazy what this department store is. She is joking about spending money, buying new shoes and everything else. It was gross. If you were raped, you would not be treating this now as a shopping spree. You would be, as she said, she was going to use this money to help victims. There's absolutely no victim help that is in her heart on this, it seems, at least. Yeah. I think if you could get some of these, if you could get these cases out of Washington, D.C. and New York City, they wouldn't stand. So,
unless he goes to jail for something related to episodes like this. I still think Trump is headed for victory. We've got a prime minister who is campaigning against Donald Trump. Justin Trudeau's really low in the polls. His conservative opponent, Pierre Poilievre, is hitting all the right notes, rising up in support. We've got a multi-party system, so 41, 42% gets you a big majority. Trudeau started campaigning against Trump, trying to say basically electing him is Trump. I've said that's a dangerous idea. It puts Canada in a really bad position, especially if Trump wins. And now one of Trudeau's own advisors, former ambassador for Trudeau in Washington, is saying, hey, you better stop this. This is really dumb. Trudeau gets attention in the States now and again. How do you think Trump reacts if he gets elected and finds out his neighbor has been campaigning against him?
Well, it's not going to be a friendly relationship,
But you'll still watch curling.
Yeah, of course I will. Sweeping the ice. Who came up with that? Anyway, it won't be a friendly relationship. Donald Trump tends to remember who his friends are. I don't think, we have a guy in office right now who has weaponized the Department of Justice, who has taken money from China openly. We have the receipts now. We have 87 what are called yellow tickets, which is the bank telling the Treasury, this looks like money laundering. We have all of the receipts now. Why it's not in the mainstream media is the same reason why it wouldn't be in the mainstream media, on the CBC. But they're saying that he's going to be a dictator. We're already on the road to a dictator. And I take this very, very seriously because it is in these times where you have strife, you have a split nation, you don't have any measurement of truth anymore. There's two sides that believe the exact opposite things. While we're doing fairly well, corporately in America, the people are struggling to make ends meet. And this is when somebody can say, and we have real trouble in the streets with crime and the immigration that's out of control, all of this stuff. That's when a strong man can stand up. And we already have one forming on the left, who is just a uniform away from just breaking all the constitutional laws. And Donald Trump could be a guy like that. I don't think so, because he's never done it. In COVID, they wanted him to nationalize the medical industry, and he would not do it. But we're in trouble. If we're not all careful, we're in trouble. And quite honestly, Brian, I worry about you guys. I mean, when you're allowing the mentally handicapped to choose death, and you have doctors and nurses aiding them in that, that's a real bad sign.
Well, we've been dealing with that, and the government thankfully put it on pause under a lot of pressure. They wanted to go ahead with this.
Oh, I know they did.
It was a lower court ruling. They should have appealed it 4 years ago when it happened, but they wanted to go ahead with it. We had a cabinet minister this week, Glenn, defend the idea of giving fentanyl to children under the so-called safer supply idea. Well, you're addicted to drugs, so let's just keep giving them, which to me is like, okay, well, we fought Big Pharma and companies like Purdue over the opioid crisis, and now we've just said, you know what, let's keep it going, but we'll have the government give you the drugs instead.
Right. Yeah, and you can't really sue
insane.
the government. I'll tell you, we are all in the same position. France, Germany, the Netherlands, England. I'm at a conference right now with the former Prime Minister of England, Truss, who lasted about 48 hours.
Yeah.
And she's been telling me a little bit about how deep the corruption is in England. And I said to her, it's the same battle all around the world, I believe, and that is the elites versus the average man. The average guy is not for all of these crazy policies and everything else.
I've got a book right behind me written by former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, uh, where he described it as the somewheres versus the anywheres. The people who live somewhere versus the people who
Yes.
can live anywhere. The
Yes.
laptop class versus everyone else.
Yes.
And I think it's the same sort of thing. I want to switch gears and talk to you about Israel for a little bit. But before that, the invasion of October 7th, I think, had the veil drop on part of this whole thing.
Hold on just a second. May I just say, before we leave the United States and go to
Yeah.
that very important topic, um, I just told some friends on GB News just last week. Other countries should keep their eye on America closely this year. We are closer to a civil war, and I'm praying to
Seriously.
God it doesn't happen. But somebody could do something stupid, and the whole nation for the first time is walking on eggshells, and we have nefarious people on all sides that would like to collapse this thing, along with a lot of people on the outside of our country. And the rest of the world should be very aware that your biggest partner and friend over the years is extraordinarily unstable, and pray for us. Please pray for us.
Well, let's hope that it doesn't get to that.
Right.
America is strong, and let's hope the institutions do hold. Uh,
Yeah.
but part of the institutional rot that we saw, it became public for so many people on or after, just after October 7th, is the DEI industry, diversity, equity, inclusion. Their reaction to Hamas invading Israel made a lot of people who weren't aware of this, weren't woke to this, as they might say, realize, hey, wait a minute, this is a disaster. And you and I have been talking about this for years,
decades.
But this is, do you think that enough people are seeing behind the curtain?
Brian, I just asked this of my audience this week, and I don't know the answer yet. Are we so fat and arrogant that we just don't believe that anything matters, that it will always be this way? Are we that stupid and ignorant? Or are people waking up? I think there are some waking up, but you better wake up quickly, because I think the younger generation has really been lost on this, and they're buying into all of this socialist, collectivist, anti-Jewish propaganda, and it's a little terrifying, and even more so that there's a couple of things that have happened. We sent Iran $6 billion under Joe Biden.
Yeah.
We have restored UNWR, and restored the funding. And we now find out that 10% of all of the people that work there, at least 10%, had direct ties to Hamas, helped plan the October 7th, and some of them participated in it. And then, to gain votes, Joe Biden just went to Michigan 2 days ago and announced that he was debanking Israelis who, have a home here in the United States, go back and forth, may have a visa, debanking them and banning them from the United States because, quote, they threw rocks at Palestinians.
And I heard that, but where is the same reaction to
Yes.
the people supporting Hamas?
Yes.
It's not there. And our government, our prime minister, is exactly the same. It's funny. Politically, there's a lot of similarities between them, but they
Oh,
don't get
yeah.
along. Biden doesn't like Trudeau. So maybe that'll make you like Biden more.
No, no.
I'll tell you, in Israel, came back just over a week ago. And I was there before it was revealed that there was evidence that UNRWA employees participated in the massacre. And still, before anyone knew that, so we're going around, we're in briefings with the Foreign Affairs Ministry, briefing with the Minister of Jewish Diaspora Relations, different members of the Knesset, civil society, journalists. Number one message, Hamas must be defeated. Number two message, UNRWA must be dismantled and can't be part of the future. In Israel, that is across the board right now. They are unified in this mission, even harsh critics of Netanyahu. But I worry that they won't have the outside support. Based on what you said Biden did just a few days ago, does America stand strong with Israel, or do they eventually just say, before they win, oh, you've got to lay down your arms. You can't go that far.
Which America? Which America? There is a growing feeling of, we're in a representative republic. We vote for our representatives. They represent us in Washington. There is a growing number of people, I think over 50% between independents and conservatives, that feel, and some Democrats too, that feel I'm not being represented. I don't relate to these people. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know. I don't feel that way at all. And they're just moving forward. So I think America stands with Israel. I think our leaders, they don't. They don't. They're growing more and more on the side of Hamas and the terrorists. You have the young population of America now starting to read Osama bin Laden and saying, he had a lot of good points. You have the Democrats needing to get votes from the Muslim communities in Dearborn and in Minnesota and elsewhere, doing crazy things. That's the only reason why Joe Biden debanked these people. Is it not because their crimes were so horrific?
And
And
announced
it there. Yes.
Unreal. So what is Israel's path forward then? They're going to have, after Biden's announcement, Trudeau was asked about it and said, well, we're monitoring that situation closely. He's always quick on condemning Israel, on denouncing Islamophobia. He's slow on anything on the other side. And you're going to have a lot of other world leaders like that. David Cameron, currently the Foreign Affairs Minister in the UK, says, we'll force a two-state solution. Okay, great. Who runs that? Hamas?
Mm-hmm. And have you seen the polls in Gaza? They don't want a two-state solution. It's truly madness. And I think that's one reason why Donald Trump, it was the number one topic at the World Economic Forum. The people who are in the middle of changing capitalism to stakeholder capitalism, which is not capitalism, it's fascism. The people who are in the midst of designing this new world order, they're on the path, and the only thing that stops them are the farmers that are currently around the Eiffel Tower, or the farmers who are out in the Netherlands and in Germany, the Brexit people, the independents here in America, the Trump people. Donald Trump and Milei and Orban in Hungary. I don't necessarily agree with all of their policies, but that's the threat to the established New World Order. And they cannot have Donald Trump in office. They will do absolutely anything to make sure he's not in office. That's a real problem. because it's the only thing they're afraid of are the people. If you watch the WEF, you know their slogan this year was restoring trust. But listen to them. Yeah, see, I know. Listen to what they're saying. We laugh because we think they're talking to us, but they're not. They need to restore trust within themselves because people are starting in that group are starting to say, I don't know, this looks like it's falling apart. And if you listen to Klaus Schwab carefully, he's saying you have to have trust in our plans and in our institutions. He's talking to them, not us, not us.
You've got to go in a couple minutes. I just want to ask you this. You have been able to talk about these stories that are out there because you are in part a new media pioneer. Media industry is crumbling. You straddle the new media and legacy media like radio and such. What's the future for being able to talk openly and freely? We've got governments that spread disinformation on a daily basis, trying to regulate the internet up here. I'm sure that there are people in the United States want to do the same. Europe, of course, they want to do that. What have you learned over the last, when did you launch online? 2011?
2010 or 11, yeah.
This is 12, 13 years you've been doing this. Are we still headed towards an online future? Is it still a free future? What have you learned?
I have placed money in my own way on 3 states, Florida, Texas, and Idaho. And I'm currently talking to Florida, Texas, and Idaho about which one will guarantee my First Amendment right. Which one of you is going to stand when it comes? Because I truly believe with all this talk of disinformation and how dangerous it is, and when my name is brought up with the Foreign Office in England, and they're talking about disinformation in America, and they're targeting people like Joe Rogan, they're targeting people like me, they're targeting people like Ben Shapiro. What the hell is going on there? Why is a foreign country, why are foreign public-private partnerships trying to come into the United States, and they're worried about our disinformation here? There is a well-organized plan that is public-private partnership, which, make no mistake, look it up, that is the definition of fascism. You play ball with the government and you're fine. You don't play ball with the government, they'll just take you out of the situation. Your company will go on, but they'll find the director that will play ball. I think this year is a turning point. By 2025, we should have some idea of, are we still in the fight? I am gravely concerned about freedom of speech in America. Never before, ever. I've done this almost for 50 years, Brian. I've been in, in FCC regulations since I was 13 years old. I know it. I know what the game is. I know exactly what the rules are. I know how to play it. We're not in that world anymore. And in the first time in 47 years of doing this, and Stu, who is my executive producer, he's not as pessimistic as I am. For the first time, the last 6 months, we've both been talking about how long do we have before they shut us down?
The Trudeau government has just given our version of the SCC the ability to regulate online content. They do a horrible job doing radio and television, and now they're going to regulate online media. I'm frightened of that.
I think Canada is the canary in the coal mine. I mean, you saw what they did to the truckers. We're now doing the same thing, just not as openly. We're entering in a really frightening space. And I don't mean just America, I mean the entire Western world. And Canada, unless you change courses and get away from Trudeau, Canada is in real trouble. But, I heard somebody talk just the other day who said, the president only needs to appoint, the next president only needs to appoint 300 people in the bureaucratic level to change things. Anybody who would think that has no idea what we're all facing. It is so deeply entrenched. It's not secret meetings or anything else. It's like-minded people that have been deeply entrenched in our governments that who think they know better than the average person.
In the 1970s, the Brits had a comedy show called Yes Minister, and Yes Prime Minister it went on to. And it was all about the permanent government constantly changing course. That is what we have everywhere. That is what you have in America. That is what we have. Pierre Poilievre gets in. We don't have the same system where you get to appoint so many different people in the bureaucracy. We'll change the executive, but the government may stay the same. And I'll leave you with this because you got to run. But when Stephen Harper took office and he wanted to make positive statements about Israel, he couldn't do it through the Foreign Office. He had to do it from his office because the bureaucrats would refuse to issue statements.
We had the State Department in 1947 came and threatened President Truman and said, you are not going to approve this statehood of Israel. And he said, the hell I'm not. And they said, we will destroy you. We will get out in front and we will destroy you. Well, he knew that they could and that they would. He announced immediately and cut him off at the pass. But that State Department is worse than that today. And it's every department doesn't answer to the people or the president anymore. We luckily have our Constitution. If we can get enough people in Congress and in the Senate, and quite honestly, the presidency as well, and they actually do their job, they can stop this fairly quickly. A permanent solution will take 12 years of concentrated effort to cut this forest down of these bad anti-democratic weeds.
Well, as Benjamin Franklin said, Glenn, you've got a republic if you can keep it. I hope you do. Thanks so much for the time.
Thank you. God bless.
Well, let me know what you think. Drop a comment down below. Share this on social media. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.